The discounts were never real. The fees were never explained. Yamaha dealers went all in on high-pressure sales, and now they're paying the price. Riders are angry, inventory is piling up, and what used to be a dream is starting to feel like a trap. This isn't a correction, it's a reckoning. The dealership illusion. For decades, walking into a motorcycle dealership was supposed to feel like entering a temple of freedom. The chrome, the smell of rubber, the polished tanks under showroom lights, all of it designed to stir your soul. Whether it was Harley-Davidson or Yamaha, the message was clear. This was your ticket to the open road. But behind the roaring engines and nostalgic posters was something far less romantic, a business model built on illusion. Dealerships didn't just sell bikes. They sold the fantasy of rebellion at a premium. And then they moved the goalposts. One year, the price of a cruiser jumped. The next year, it happened again. Then came added fees, then came limited availability. At every turn, what once felt attainable became more distant. But riders accepted it because they believed it was the new reality. Slowly, the definition of value changed. A $25,000 touring bike became reasonable. A $10,000 starter motorcycle felt fair. Why? Because they told us it was. Dealerships understood something powerful. If you repeat a story long enough, people will believe it. And the story they pushed was simple. If you don't buy now, you never will. Fear of missing out became their greatest weapon. Salespeople used scarcity and time pressure like hammers. Buyers were told, "Someone else is looking at this right now," even if no one was. The pressure was constant, the charm was calculated, and the illusion was airtight. That leads us straight into the financial trap that kept the dream alive just long enough to bury the buyer. We've done the research and the facts are clear. Yamaha's dealership strategies are creating hidden costs and frustration for buyers. If you want to stay ahead of these issues, make sure to like this video and hit subscribe for more updates on this ever-evolving story. The loan that never ends. Most riders do not walk into a dealership with a bag full of cash. They finance. And for years, that was fine, until it wasn't. Because somewhere along the line, dealerships realized that the real profit wasn't in the motorcycle. It was in the loan. Post-pandemic, financing turned predatory. What once was a 3-year loan became 5, then 6, then 7. The monthly payments stayed the same, or even got smaller, but the cost ballooned. A $15,000 Yamaha cruiser under the new terms could end up costing nearly $30,000 after interest, fees, and add-ons, all while buyers were told it's affordable. The numbers were hidden in long-term agreements, buried in small print, and normalized through smooth talk. And this is where the trap really closed. Riders weren't just taking on loans, they were being conditioned into lifetime customers of the dealership's finance department. Hidden clauses, prepayment penalties, mandatory insurance riders. The bike was the bait, the loan was the net. Even worse, the riders hit hardest were the ones with the least to lose. Younger buyers, often with subpar credit, were promised the freedom of the road, only to be saddled with debt they could not escape. Miss a payment, and the dream was gone. Make every payment, and you still paid nearly double what the machine was worth. Some buyers discovered the truth only when trying to trade in their bike, only to find it was worth half of what they still owed. They weren't riders anymore. They were hostages to paperwork they never fully understood. The dealerships knew this. They planned for it. And they moved the goalposts just far enough to keep you chasing. And when that didn't work, they found other ways to make the price feel normal, even if the bike was never actually there to begin with. Need gear that's built to last, not upsell you? We've listed trusted helmets, jackets, and gloves in the description. No markup, no games, hidden fees, phantom bikes. By now, every seasoned rider knows that the manufacturer's suggested retail price is just that, suggested. What the dealership charges is another story entirely. And in that gap between suggested and final lies a labyrinth of fees, fluff, and fiction. It begins innocently enough. A bike is listed at $14,000. You sit down, eager to make the deal, only to watch the price rise, line by line. Destination charge $1,000. Prep fee $700. Documentation fee $300. Market adjustment, whatever they think they can get. By the time the paperwork lands in front of you, your $14,000 bike has become 16 or 17 or more. It does not stop there. Want the keys today? Then you need the theft protection package. How about a 5-year extended warranty with exclusions so broad it barely covers anything? Paint protection? It is just wax, but it will cost you another few hundred. And if you question it, you're told someone else is ready to pay. Or worse, that the bike might already be sold, because that's the final trick. The phantom inventory. Dealers have been known to hide bikes in storage, stage sold tags on unsold units, or say the last one just left to pressure you into acting fast. It is not just aggressive, it is theatrical. And it works, because you believe the scarcity is real. You believe the fees are standard. You believe that saying no means walking away empty-handed. But riders are waking up. Forums are filled with stories. Buyers are comparing notes. And slowly, the fog of dealership fiction is lifting. And once it lifts, the real rebellion begins. Not with yelling, but with something far more effective. Silence. Riders go silent. There was no protest, no organized boycott, no banners or rallies, just something dealerships never expected: absence. One by one, the buyers disappeared. They stopped walking through the doors. They stopped answering follow-up calls. They simply stopped buying. And it was devastating. Dealerships built on the illusion of urgency were suddenly faced with weeks, then months of untouched inventory. Promotions were ignored. Floor traffic dropped. Even trade-ins slowed down. And without customers, the pressure shifted inward. Sales teams were squeezed harder. Prices were quietly slashed. But it was too late. Because this wasn't just a drop in demand. It was a shift in trust. Riders began looking elsewhere. Private sellers, online marketplaces, even peer-to-peer communities. They started buying used bikes from other riders instead of walking into a dealership to be upsold, pressured, and misled. The power dynamic flipped. Suddenly, it was the dealers who were desperate. And the best part? Riders did it without making a sound. There was no headline, no viral outrage, just quiet refusal, a steady withdrawal of loyalty from a system that no longer deserved it. The silence was louder than any protest. It said, "We see you. We're done, and we're not coming back." And what came next didn't just disrupt sales. It disrupted the very way motorcycles were designed, sold, and valued. Complexity killed the ride. Once riding was about mechanical intimacy. You knew your bike. You tuned it yourself. You felt every vibration and learned to read your machine like a second heartbeat. Today, that connection is vanishing. Modern motorcycles are no longer designed for the rider. They're built for the service department. Manufacturers have packed bikes with electronics, sensors, and proprietary systems that not only complicate the ride, they alienate the rider. Touchscreen dashboards, throttle-by-wire, semi-active suspension, mobile integration, customizable ride modes, the spec sheets read like smartphone manuals. But where is the joy in a ride you need to reboot? Riders aren't asking for voice commands. They're asking for simplicity, reliability, and trust. Instead, they get an instrument cluster that looks like it came from a luxury car and a user manual thick enough to pass as a college textbook. Even basic maintenance has become a dealership-exclusive experience. You want to reset a service light? That now requires a technician with a laptop and factory software. Replacing a battery? Be prepared to navigate a maze of sensors and coded modules. The ability to fix your own machine, a cornerstone of motorcycling culture, has been locked away behind digital gates. And here's the cruel irony. The more tech they add, the more fragile the bikes become. A glitch in the ABS system can sideline an entire ride. A corrupted firmware update can render the machine inoperable. Riders don't feel empowered anymore. They feel monitored. Yamaha isn't the only one guilty, but they're part of an industry-wide shift that's turned the motorcycle from a companion into a codependent platform. As riders lose mechanical control, they're beginning to look elsewhere for the kind of ownership that actually feels like ownership. The rise of the used underground. That search for simplicity didn't just spark frustration, it ignited a quiet revolution. Riders began opting out of dealership dependency and turning to the used market, a grassroots movement fueled by distrust, disillusionment, and a deep craving for real control. And it's here, in the corners of Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and parking lot meetups, where the rebellion truly began. The used market offers something modern dealerships cannot: honesty. There are no dealer prep fees, no financing traps, and no surprise tech packages waiting to malfunction. A rider meets a seller, looks the bike in the eye, hands over cash, and leaves with a machine built during a time when motorcycles were still machines, not software platforms. This isn't just about nostalgia, it's about practicality. A 10-year-old Yamaha FZ or V-Star can be maintained with basic tools. It still runs strong, sounds right, and feels alive. It doesn't need an update, it doesn't lock you into a dealer network, and it costs half, sometimes one-third, of what a new model does. As new inventory gathers dust in showrooms, used bikes are moving faster than ever. Listings vanish within hours. Buyers show up prepared, in cash, with a checklist of known issues and forums full of repair guides. The entire used ecosystem has matured into something more than a bargain bin. It has become a sanctuary for riders who still value simplicity, trust, and direct ownership. Dealers don't control this space. Manufacturers can't steer it. And for the first time in decades, the balance of power is shifting back to the rider. It's no longer about what's new. It's about what works. And that exhaustion is now showing up in the one place that used to define success: inventory turnover. Dealers drown in dust. Once, motorcycles didn't sit still. They rolled out of showrooms as fast as they arrived, with dealers often back-ordered on the most desirable models. Today, that floor traffic has all but vanished. Walk into a Yamaha dealership and the picture is bleak. Rows of untouched bikes covered in showroom lighting, but gathering a kind of emotional dust. The excitement is gone. This isn't just a slow season, it's a systemic freeze. Inventory is stuck, and not because of supply chain delays, but because buyers have checked out. Riders aren't coming back. Not until the prices come down, the tactics change, and the machines become worth buying again. And so far, none of that is happening. Floor plans, those dealer financing arrangements that front-load inventory, are ballooning. Yamaha dealers owe tens of thousands of dollars on unsold stock. Interest rates climb as bikes depreciate in real time. And corporate is no longer sending incentives. They're sending warnings. Some dealerships have already begun refusing new shipments. Others are offloading overstock in bulk to secondary networks or auction lots. The desperation is no longer behind closed doors. It's on display. Staff turnover is rising. Sales tactics are sharpening. And buyers can feel it from the moment they walk in. Even longtime loyalists are beginning to speak out. "I've never seen this many bikes on the floor this long," one rider posted in a regional forum. "It's like the whole place just gave up." What used to be a badge of pride, a showroom full of Yamahas, has become a liability. Inventory has transformed into evidence, proof that the system is cracking. And what comes next? A reckoning that will be impossible to ignore. Desperation training. Inside Yamaha dealerships, something changed, and it was not subtle. The smiles got sharper, the greetings got shorter, and behind the counter, sales staff were no longer selling motorcycles, they were executing a script. "Close the deal, no matter what," was no longer a motivational phrase. It became a mandate. That shift marked the beginning of desperation training. New hires, often passionate riders hoping to work in the world they loved, found themselves immediately thrust into survival mode. Sales quotas were no longer goals. They were ultimatums. Miss one and you were warned. Miss two and you were gone. There was no room for patience, no time for relationship building. Training sessions focused not on the features of the bike, but on objection handling, fear selling, and psychological triggers. The job wasn't to help someone ride, it was to make sure they signed. What began as a high-pressure tactic turned into something darker. One dealership in Texas reportedly circulated a script that instructed staff to build urgency from silence. If a customer hesitated, they were trained to stare. If they asked about hidden fees, they were told the bikes might not be here tomorrow. Financing terms were presented last, only after a non-refundable deposit had been taken. Some riders left feeling like they had just been robbed, only with a receipt in hand. This wasn't salesmanship, it was extraction. And once that culture took root, a bigger force would arrive that dealerships were entirely unprepared for. The dealership's digital killer. Direct-to-consumer platforms didn't arrive with noise. They crept in silently. One form, one click, one saved buyer at a time. Then, before anyone realized it, they rewrote the rules. Yamaha dealers weren't just competing with each other. They were now battling a new model of commerce. One where buyers didn't need to walk into a store, get upsold by a stranger, or haggle like it was 1995. Online retail for motorcycles used to be unthinkable. Today, it is inevitable. The process is brutally simple. Choose a model, configure it, see the final price. No hidden fees, no negotiation games, no scripted urgency. Delivery and paperwork handled with the same ease as ordering furniture. For younger buyers, this isn't just preferable, it's expected. Yamaha's own experimentation with online listings only made matters worse for local dealerships. When factory websites displayed transparent pricing, buyers used them as leverage. Why is this bike $32,000 here, they'd ask, when Yamaha lists it for $26,000? Dealerships stumbled. They blamed logistics, they blamed fees, they blamed market conditions. But the buyer already knew the truth. The dealer model was bloated, outdated, and hemorrhaging trust. And it wasn't just Yamaha. Other brands, especially electric startups, were skipping the dealership model entirely. They built showrooms only as optional spaces. The sale happened online. No sales pitch, no manipulation, just clean numbers, clean margins, and empowered buyers. What dealers failed to see was that the new system wasn't just better, it was vindication. The very tactics they used to squeeze riders now made riders seek revenge. And Yamaha's corporate offices were already taking notes. Yamaha's silent pivot. While dealerships wrestled with panic, Yamaha remained quiet, too quiet. It was not denial. It was something more calculated. Behind the curtain, Yamaha was already making subtle moves that hinted at a long-term pivot, one that did not include protecting traditional dealerships. Internal restructuring documents leaked in early 2025 suggested that Yamaha had begun investing in direct-to-consumer pilot programs in select Asian markets. The move was framed as regional modernization, but industry insiders knew what it really meant. Yamaha was studying the Tesla model, and once it had enough data, the same strategy could land in North America. Customer service platforms became more sophisticated. Live chats replaced phone trees. Transparent pricing tools appeared on Yamaha's website. Referral programs launched that incentivized peer-to-peer sales. None of this required a showroom floor. None of it relied on a dealer's approval. The company that once lived and died by physical retail was now preparing for a future where the middleman was optional. What made this pivot even more unnerving for dealers was Yamaha's silence. There were no corporate reassurances, no public statements defending brick-and-mortar stores, just the sound of strategic distancing. Some dealers speculated Yamaha was waiting them out, allowing the weakest locations to fold under their own weight before announcing a structural shift. If that theory is right, then what we're witnessing isn't negligence, it's triage. Yamaha is choosing which parts of its ecosystem are worth saving, and the traditional dealership may not be one of them, because the crash has already begun, and the smartest players are not trying to stop it, they're trying to survive it. The brands that can't adapt. For decades, legacy motorcycle brands like Harley-Davidson, Honda, and even Kawasaki operated with one core advantage: scale. They controlled distribution, shaped rider expectations, and influenced pricing through sheer momentum. But when Yamaha started undercutting that system, not just with price, But with leaner manufacturing and direct-to-consumer flexibility, something broke. These giants didn't stumble because they lacked desire. They collapsed because they were structurally incapable of responding. Every part of the legacy model was built for a different era. Heavy inventories, regional dealerships, long design cycles, and bloated overhead made it impossible to pivot quickly. Yamaha, on the other hand, began trimming fat over a decade ago. Their production lines run leaner. Their bikes are engineered to be modular, flexible, and cheaper to adapt across markets. Harley and Honda still operate like it's 1985, dependent on seasonal sales waves, showroom turnover, and a mythologized brand image that no longer moves units. When Yamaha slashed prices and flooded the market with value-driven bikes, it wasn't a gamble. It was a calculated strike. Legacy brands had nowhere to run. Their production costs were too high, their fixed dealer contracts too rigid. Their labor agreements, though historically vital, became shackles in a market that now rewards efficiency over loyalty. Even when Honda tried to respond with mid-tier naked bikes and low-cost scooters, the damage was already done. Their internal systems weren't built to scale down quickly or ship in rapid bursts like Yamaha's. Harley, for its part, leaned into premium pricing, only to find that riders weren't interested in paying $30,000 for yesterday's technology and outdated financing. Yamaha's rise didn't expose a weakness. It exposed a blueprint that no longer works. And that reality is what haunts the boardrooms of their competitors. Not the loss of sales, but the realization that they cannot compete without tearing down the very foundation they were built on. What happens when price becomes political and the market advantage becomes a national controversy? That's exactly where things are headed. When cheap means treason. In a healthy market, competition is expected. But when Yamaha motorcycles started showing up at dealerships $5,000 to $7,000 cheaper than comparable American-made bikes, something shifted. This wasn't just competition. It was seen by many in Washington as betrayal. American lawmakers, labor unions, and industrial advocates began sounding the alarm. Yamaha's price war was no longer just a market tactic, it had become a political flashpoint. Every imported motorcycle that undercuts American wages now triggers debates in congressional hearing rooms. How can our workers compete with subsidized factories? Some ask. Others take a more aggressive tone. Is this economic warfare under the guise of free trade? The outrage isn't just theoretical. In regions like the Midwest, where manufacturing still anchors local economies, Yamaha's aggressive pricing is seen as a direct threat to livelihoods. Tariff talks are already underway. Some are calling for blanket import taxes. Others want to enforce domestic content requirements, forcing companies like Yamaha to shift final assembly to the United States or pay the price. And through all of this, riders are caught in the middle. Do you stay loyal to American manufacturing even if it costs you $10,000 more, or do you buy what you can actually afford? This is where Yamaha's bombshell has the widest blast radius, because now every purchase becomes a political act. Buy American and maybe sacrifice value. Buy Yamaha and face accusations of undermining your own economy. It's a no-win dilemma, one fueled by the collapse of middle-class affordability and the global race to the bottom in production costs. Yet even as the headlines debate patriotism versus practicality, there's a deeper reality unfolding on factory floors across the country. A reality that has nothing to do with imports and everything to do with something no tariff can stop. Labor fades, automation grows. For decades, the image of American manufacturing was built on sweat, steel, and skill. A factory job meant stability. It meant a path to the middle class. And for generations of motorcycle workers, from Milwaukee to Marysville, that image was real. But behind the closed doors of modern plants, that image has evaporated. The new reality is colder, quieter, and powered by code. Automation isn't coming, it's already here. Robots weld, paint, and assemble with speed and precision that no human crew can match. Artificial intelligence systems now optimize production lines in real time, predicting part shortages and rerouting supply chains before workers even notice a delay. Entire departments that once required dozens of skilled laborers now operate with a handful of technicians and a server rack. Yamaha embraced this shift early. Their production facilities in Asia and Europe run with staggering efficiency, enabling lower prices without gutting quality. Meanwhile, legacy American brands tried to hold the line, protecting jobs, honoring union agreements, and hoping efficiency could wait. It couldn't. The gap widened, and then it broke. Workers didn't just lose jobs, they lost relevance. The economic model moved on without them. And the worst part, no one told them it was happening. They were sold on the idea that trade wars, reshoring, or Buy American campaigns would save them. But what they needed wasn't a flag, it was a plan, and nobody delivered one. So now as factories downsize and automation accelerates, we face a bitter irony. Riders are still riding. Motorcycles are still being built, but the humans who made it possible are being phased out. Not because they failed, but because the system evolved faster than their protections could. And that system is also evolving something else, the mindset of the next generation of riders. If you've ever been frustrated by dealership tricks or hidden fees, we want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let us know your experience. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise of the motorcycle industry. From myth to machine. In the past, owning a motorcycle was a cultural statement. It meant freedom, rebellion, identity. It was the embodiment of personal control, over time, over space, over who you were. But to the next generation, the myth has lost its magic. What used to be a symbol of the open road is now just another transaction, just another product in a saturated market. Younger buyers don't dream about leather jackets and back roads. They dream about stability, financial freedom, and making practical choices. For them, motorcycles are not identity-defining purchases, they are tools. That doesn't mean they don't care. It means they care differently. Yamaha understands this better than almost anyone. Their newest marketing pushes emphasize usability, value, and reliability, not heritage. Their bikes are built with practicality first, with modular features that adapt to different lifestyles. Their ads speak to commuters, adventurers, and budget-conscious hobbyists, not just diehards. This is where the seismic shift is happening. The dream of the motorcycle as a larger-than-life expression of rebellion is being replaced by something quieter, but more lasting. Utility, accessibility, dependability. Riders today are less interested in chrome and thunder and more interested in bikes that work, that last, and that do not cost half their annual income to keep running. Legacy brands built their identity on myth. Yamaha is building theirs on function. And while it may not stir the soul in the same way, it resonates deeply in a world where most people are just trying to survive. The real rebellion is happening behind the scenes, and it's time for riders to take their power back. Drop a comment below and tell us how you feel about getting ripped off by dealerships. You're not alone, and your voice matters. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with the changes and share this video with fellow riders looking for clarity in today's marketplace.